Hello, welcome everybody. This is our next lecture here in the drone piloting class. This is going to be about safety, all about safety. So you may have noticed if you're taking this the first time, I've rearranged the schedule a little bit. This chapter, well, this lesson is only going to be from Kennedy's chapter 3. Um, Yes, chapter 3, which is titled Safety and Legal. But yeah, we're really going to focus on the safety aspect for today's lecture. Um, so let's go ahead and begin. Going to do this like usual. Let me get into my slideshow here. And you'll notice a lot of the graphics that are similar to what comes in the Kennedy book, and that's because I pulled them directly as you are scanning them, or as you have seen the scanned version. I hope you're downloading that scanned version that I'm uploading to you guys that I have on Canvas. Um, Even better if you have the hard copy. Um, it's a really, really wonderful book. So anyways, let's begin and talk about safety. You know, a lot of these things are going to sound kind of like common sense, and frankly, they are. Nevertheless, we do want to have some. We kind of hammering it in so far, right? In this early part of the semester, and you heard the term safety first. It's important. It really is important in what we're trying to accomplish here, in theory and practice. So let's use the phrase "keep a distance," which certainly in the fall of 2020 can apply to kind of many different connotations to that, right? Um, in society. But in using drones, in particular, certainly we want to kind of keep that phrase in our mind as it relates to what we're going to be flying over, right? So I'm pulling these from Kennedy directly, these recommendations. Um, and you'll notice that there's some things sync with the P107 and some things are just Kennedy's recommendations. That's fine. That's our textbook. We're going to kind of go on a lot of that. So first and foremost, okay, we're going to hammer this point down and keep talking about this. Your maximum height to fly the drone is going to be 400 feet. Okay, 400 feet. Um, and that's, you know, in general, that's class G airspace. That's with no other restrictions or obstacles, etc. Right? Just as a general rule of thumb, how high can you fly your drone? It's 400 feet. Okay, that's the maximum. Um, we know by using AirMap that certainly if you're in a controlled airspace, there's limitations to that, right? There's different ceilings applied. But yeah, that's what we are reviewing here. Now, you know, look at the top three um, graphics here. And again, this is from Kennedy, not necessarily what you're going to see on the P107, okay? But I want us to kind of follow these recommendations. So when it comes to a person, right, you're not supposed to fly. And again, in the P107, the language is very um, I don't want to say ambiguous, but it's very general, saying don't fly over people. I mean, what the heck does that mean, right? I'm a person. What if I fly over myself? I mean, I think you have to use some of this as in common sense in the sense in saying people that have zero knowledge or have given you any type of clearance or approval that it's okay to fly over them. So that's really what they're trying to say here. So don't fly over a person as an individual. We're going to use 50 meters, and that's all directions. All of these first three are all directions, right? Horizontally and vertically. 50 meters. And now, if you convert 50 meters, Kennedy's book, if you hadn't noticed, is from the UK. But 50 meters is 165 feet. Just to keep things simple and even safer, I'm going to go with rounding that to 150 feet. Okay, so 150 feet. in all directions. Stay away from a person. And you see in the blue would be the next one, a building, okay? And a road, okay? Any kind of road. Busy, not busy, congested, 2-lane, 4-lane highway, whatever it is. We're going to kind of follow these general recommendations. These are good rules of thumb. Now, congested areas, no flying within these areas, 500 feet, right? 495 feet, 150 meters. Again, when we talk about in what the P107 mentions, it says don't fly over large crowds of people. So look at that gathering. I mean, fall 2020, there's probably not going to be gatherings anyways, but during times that are normal, as I remember them to be, large gatherings of people. It's funny. I can recall a number of instances where it seemed that the larger the gathering became, more in the air flying over. It's just kind of a reckless thing to do. The more people that are in the public, some type of gathering in an event, and the more likely the case is going to be that those people have given no clearance to the drone pilot to fly over them. I mean, frankly, I'm just speaking from my personal experience. I don't even know who the drone pilot was or where they were for that matter. I just saw a drone flying overhead. And that's kind of freaky to some people. And, I'll be frank, like at a concert or something, what do people do when they are at those type of events? They like to have fun. And so a lot of inhibitions go out the door. But if a drone is flying over top, whether it's for fun or out of irritation, I think it's human nature to start throwing things at that drone, throwing things at something that's annoying, right? And I know I'm speaking kind of, off the cuff here from personal experience. I'm going to do that quite a bit in this lecture, but I saw a couple close calls where people threw rocks and other things, trying to shoo the drone away. For the drone pilot's perspective, you're not going to really see some of those objects coming at the drone. But anyways, for both parties, let's just put it this way: it's not a good idea unless this is agreed upon by all parties. Like if it's a wedding or something like this, I mean, people need to be aware if a drone is going to be flying over them. Okay, especially if it's a large crowd, right? We know the airport stuff, right? We've gone over that ad nauseum here, but general 5 miles, and this would be our controlled airspace. We've learned a lot more about controlled airspace and some of the can and cannots, even within that 5-mile radius. Okay. So great. Let's keep going. Yeah, now we've got it in words. Safe distance of, whenever I have quotations there, that's something that I'm paraphrasing from Kennedy's book. So safe distance of, let's round it to 150 feet from the public. Even though P107 states you should not be flying over the public anyways, especially overflights over large crowds. And permission. So another thing Kennedy says is that permission should be sought to temporarily close a road if an overflight is necessary. When it comes to P107, there is no specific language about this, but it is a good rule of thumb. I will say it's definitely a good rule of thumb, especially over. I mean, again, this is kind of common sense, especially over any kind of road that has a lot of traffic. Potentially, or intersections. It would be advisable to close or reroute or detour some of that traffic in the event of a drone flight above it. I mean, think about it, right? If a drone, it's one thing for a drone to land on a person. If a drone lands on a car, or if a drone lands on the road, or even if a drone is flying over somebody driving and that person is distracted by that drone in the air, and next thing you know, they get into a car crash. I mean, there's a number of scenarios here where you could see this would be dangerous. Um, so anyways, just want to make that distinction between what Kennedy says versus what you might see or not see in the P107. Maintain a distance of 150 feet from buildings unless you have control of the building or permission from the owner. Again, I think that's another really good recommendation, just because, especially people within the building see a drone flying at them. People get nervous when stuff like that happens, right? I hate to be kind of negative during this lecture, but we're going to we have to kind of speak about a lot of the potential pitfalls when we are discussing safety as an overarching discussion. So think about if you're in a building and you see a drone coming at you and you have some foreign thing, and let's be honest, most people aren't in this class, so they don't know what the world of drones is like. And people get kind of freaked out in a lot of cases, thinking, does that thing have a bomb on it? Does that thing have some type of weapon, or who knows what's going to be, right? So it's just not good to do that kind of thing. And also, frankly, what if you fly the drone too close to the building and you crash into the building, right? Whether it's damage to your drone, damage to the building, damage to things below. I mean, all of these are potential hazards that could take place. So yeah, I mean, again, it sounds like simple common sense, but there wouldn't be rules in place if it weren't for things, if it weren't for instances already occurring. And believe you me, all you have to do, check out YouTube and type in, flying a drone around some type of monument or structure or building, whatever it is, downtown something, right? Type downtown San Francisco for that matter. You'll find dozens and dozens and dozens of videos where people are flying recklessly around buildings, around crowds, around you name it, right? Not complying. But I mean, they make killer videos, some really, really awesome looking stuff. But for that matter, it's not legal. And, even in the context of whether it's legal per the P107 or not, it's not the right thing to do, right? So ethically, from that perspective, that's kind of what I'm trying to emphasize to you guys. Do the right thing. And I guess I should say, don't do the wrong thing, or don't do the wrong thing. So anyways, you might see these numbers come up again in a quiz, just FYI. So, you might ask yourself, like, where can I fly? And, we've discussed these things quite a bit already. And parks, I know for me, it was like, okay, well, I'll go to a park. It's an open space. There's not a lot of people around. Makes a lot of sense, right? Safe place to fly. And this is true, but I want you guys to be aware that a lot of parks don't want drones there. A lot of parks just don't want any drone activity. Flying drones is often subject to a ban in nature reserves or national parks. That's a general statement from Kennedy, right? He's writing this for the whole world. I don't know what all the drone park rules are in the UK. I don't know what they are in, South America. I know what most of them are, in this local area. So on a national level, national parks, right? Yosemite, Yellowstone. I mean, heck, even smaller, Rosie the Riveter in Richmond, right? It's like a little small building. It's considered a national park. You can't fly a drone over it. Okay, that's a federal ordinance that's not allowed. So nature reserves, you're kind of, that's a little bit different, blanket statement there. but certainly on a country basis, national parks, we know this, you're not supposed to fly at national parks. Now, when it comes to, I pulled some resources that are more local, just for your reference, okay? And this is not a completely comprehensive list, but I did my best to try to find some of the big ones, just so that you know. It says you need permission to fly at these places, which means if you don't get permission like otherwise, then you're not supposed to fly here. Okay. So believe it or not, all the parks within the East Bay Regional Parks District are quote unquote no drones. All of the San Francisco City parks, all of the space within the Santa Clara Valley Open Space Authority. I mean, these are like huge spaces in some instances, right? Um, and look, um, I'm not trying to show you guys every single way to how you get permissions for every single little park out there. I would leave that to a little bit of investigation on you as an individual. It is possible, but to be, frank, you have to go through some permission through an authority, park authority, to fly in these places. Now that could be as simple as, in my experience, I'll just tell you a story. I talked to the park ranger, right? This is an East Bay park. I talked to a park ranger. I said, look, this is what I'm doing. I'm actually hired to do a job here. I have in the instance I'm referring to, I have a contract from so-and-so contractor that is working with East Bay Regional Parks, and I have been authorized to fly over here. Is that okay, park ranger, sir? Um, look it over. Okay, split decision to kind of in the moment thing. Okay, you've got all your credentials. This is Class G airspace. Just be safe. Don't fly over the public. Make it quick. Be done. So, okay, it worked out. It was okay. Again, some of these things are not as black and white. You know what I mean? There's some gray area between this, in the sense of, there's not always the Lance, right? Like that's a great thing, but when it comes to the more localized situations, um, different judgment calls have to be made. When it comes to state parks in California, right? There is a quote that says wilderness areas, cultural preserves, and nature preserves. I mean, doesn't that like kind of encompass all of the state parks? But look, here's the thing. I mean, I guess I threw state parks in there because in my experience, I've actually had more pleasant success at flying at a California state park without any limitations, as opposed to ones that are more local that do have limitations. So that's a positive thing. Now, here's the other thing. Many places, not just parks, but like cities or, counties, zip codes, neighborhoods, whatever you want to call it, you name it, right? There are drone ordinances that these places want to try to enforce. Frankly, my personal opinion is they don't have the authority or jurisdiction to do so in this case, because airspace is federally managed. And I'm just telling you my opinion. But that does not mean that I'm telling you to go out and say, yeah, my drone teacher said you guys have no authority here. I'm saying be as respectful as possible and do everything you can in your power to abide by these ordinances, because the last thing you want is some kind of negative, incident causing trouble for you, your business, your client, whoever they are, right? And the list of ordinances just in California alone would be like, 100 slides. So if you want to and you're interested, you can check out the link at the bottom I just pulled quickly about various places in California that have, essentially their own makeshift ordinances they put in place, right? Um, so I don't know. We could talk about this kind of thing for a long time. We could even explore the drone pilot versus the city of so and so, and how the city lost. I'm just using kind of a general example, but there are lots of these types of court cases out there. And again, in most outcomes, actually all the outcomes I've ever seen, judges have or have presided on the side of the drone pilot, because these ordinances are not lawful in the sense of the FAA actually has the authority, not the ordinances, not the local ordinance. Nevertheless, just wanted to kind of mention that kind of thing. Check out the link, research this kind of thing a little bit deeper if there's a place you're interested in flying, just so you know. And if it is something that you get an extra permission to go about flying in that area, give it a shot. Don't just completely walk away, but don't be totally reckless either. That's my advice. Okay. So let's see. Okay. Wildlife, livestock, animals, you got to be careful. Um, it- you guys are going to get to see this firsthand experience, especially when we really get in the field out there, right, away from campus. But birds, um, birds will generally ignore drones, right? Um, but that doesn't mean that they are completely oblivious to the fact that they're there. Um, in my experience, it appears to me that the bigger the bird, the more curious they are about the drone, and what's it doing, and it's in that bird's uh, habitat, and it doesn't seem like it's a very happy time. But uh, I will say, in all of the years I've been doing this, I have yet to have one instance of a bird strike, um, whether on accident or the bird intentionally struck the drone. That doesn't mean I have instance in situations where I thought, "Oof, that was kind of a close call." Close call. But like I said, the more you do this, the more you can kind of observe the bird's behavior and say, okay, that bird is just curious, but they're not actually going to go for the drone. I've never even had an instance where a bird like dove at a drone. I've just had them kind of fly near the drones. Um, but anyways, that's not to say it doesn't happen, because if you just do a Google search, there's like hundreds of videos of birds and hawks, eagles, whatever they are, attacking drones. Now, does that mean that I know the full story behind those? Maybe the pilot was antagonizing the birds or whatnot. Hard to say, right? Just again, this is something that we'll experience in the field. Um, if you see a bird and it appears, or birds and they appear that they are um, overly anxious and or about to strike, it's in our best interest to take the drone down and maybe go fly somewhere else. Okay. We have to be respectful of nature in this context, is what I'm trying to say. And the same is true for like livestock or other types of wildlife. Just in the simple idea that they might become stressed over the side of the side or the sound of drones flying overhead, right? So um, I'll give you an example. I flew over like a herd of goats one time, and it was kind of funny, but it was also not nice because they got really scared and they got really spooked, and they like roaches just scattered in every direction, right? As if it was the scariest thing in the world. So, I really was not super comfortable about that. And Yeah, if I can avoid that kind of situation, I will. I will say that the higher you fly, in my experience, the less likely you are to disturb wildlife. Um, Again, some common sense stuff, right? Now, if you fly in a park where there's a lot of dog activity, um, you may want to try to have your landing position be away from where dogs frequently go. Um, and this is because I've had this instance happen before. Um, Dogs can, especially bigger, well, no matter what the kind of dog is, honestly, what am I saying? Dogs are going to be dogs. Every dog, whether big, small, whatever, lab, chihuahua, whoever they are, every single dog has a different personality. So you're going to get some that don't care. You're going to get some that are scared to death, and you're going to get some that want to kill it. So for those that are in that last category, you have to be very careful and very, very much, or very, very much try to land away from where the dogs are, because again, this is one of those instances of like, okay, is a dog gonna try to chase a drone that's 100 feet in the air? Probably not. It's probably not even gonna know, right? But is a dog gonna try and chase a drone that is like 5 feet from the ground? It's trying to land or take off. And I say land more so because when you're landing, you're kind of focusing more on getting the drone to the ground, and you're kind of going slower in that process. And you're actually a little bit more vulnerable, I guess is the best way to say this. Um, so yeah, I mean, in instances like that where dogs are coming, or there's any kind of dog activity nearby, it's best to just land somewhere else. Okay, it's best to land somewhere else. This is a very interesting one. You be tempted to do this. I mean, we live in California, right? And we're on the coast, and you get some incredible shots over the water, right? Over the sea, over the bay, whatever it is. But let me be frank with you, and I'm telling you this from firsthand. I say this with peace and love. Um, when a drone crashes in the water, it's over. Like, there's no getting it back. Okay, it's not going to float. It's not going to, land in the water. You go pick it up and it still works. No, nothing like that. It's going to sink like it's going to sink like a giant rock. Okay, and it's gonna suck. It's gonna be awful, and your heart's gonna sink, just like that drone. Okay, so with that being said, I'm not a huge fan of flying over water just because of a personal experience I've had where I lost I guess it was around $5,000 drone with a sensor equipped on it that was infrared. That was about a $7,000 sensor. So yeah, I've lost over $10,000 in a 5-second mishap over the bay, and that was a hard hit for my business. Okay, I won't get into too much about how that happened. You can ask me, at a different time if you want to know the exact story. But I'm just telling you, it sucked. Right? It was not good. So be very, very careful and make sure that you are confident in your flying abilities and that your equipment, um, I guess to put it frankly, could be aware that your equipment could be um, suspect to you know being gone. I guess if it's worth it, assess the risk. Is it worth the risk? Only you can make that decision. Okay. Now, if you're in the open water and you're taking off from a boat, um, your home position, it's going to change. Okay. And it's going to change because the boat's going to float somewhere else than where you originally took off. That's okay. That's okay because there's a couple things you could do. Okay, there's a couple things you could do. Number one, you can use what's called the dynamic home, the dynamic home point, and that's a setting that you would have to change. Um, and essentially, what that will do is it will constantly adjust your home point to um, stay wherever your RC is. And so it will know that and it will adjust that position. And so if you say return to home and your boat has moved 200 feet, well, the drone should also come back and know that that um, dynamic point has changed. Okay. So that's one way to do it. The other way to do it, and I don't have a note about this, but the other way to do it, and the other way to do it would be to land manually, land really slow, when you're on the descent, land really slow. And again, I advise this for people that are experienced and they're confident. Like even I rarely do this type of thing, but I've seen it happen before. And, you know, I will say it just in this kind of instance as a recommendation. Um, Land slowly, and essentially as the drone's coming down, right? The drone's coming down, you catch it like this, right? And when I say catch it, I'm not saying grab the props, um, for obvious reasons, but if you can, grab the legs of the drone, grab the legs of the drone, and just you hold it so you catch it by the legs, okay? And then you know, I guess, well, the best thing to do would be have someone else hold the controller so that they could turn it off for you, right? Because the last thing you want to be doing is trying to hold the drone, hold the controller, you know, it, on a boat. Can you imagine all these things going on at one time, right? Um, so yeah, boat flying and water flying for that matter. I would not, this is for experienced piloting, okay, not for the novice person, okay. Um, well, what is this whole return to home thing that I was just talking about, right? Speaking of this, the RTH, your return to home, your home position. It's the position of the drone on the ground or on a boat, right? But it's the position of the drone on the ground, where the drone takes off from. That's considered the home position. And you'll hear me mention this home position frequently, especially when we're in the field, the home position. I put a little graphic of what most of the home position buttons look like. Okay. So the RTH is great. The RTH is a really great feature. Okay. So it's a thing that, how does it know how to record or what that home position, where it is? Well, so the drone has GPS, right? And again, this is for, like, we're getting into more advanced drones now, right? Not just the little toy stuff like the Telos. No, that's not going to have that. But if the drone has a GPS, it should have a way to lock a home position, and that occurs during the power on, phase, when the drone's kind of just staging, like it's just sitting there. Okay, it's just sitting there. And you can actually sit and just kind of watch it happen, right, in real time. The lights on the drone will go from like a red to a yellow to a green, and when they have a blinking green, that means that the GPS is locked on the drone and that the home position has been recorded onto the drone's firmware and also on the controller that you have. So now that, unless you set it to the dynamic point, that position is going to be locked and loaded for the entire time frame of that particular battery. So what I mean by that is, okay, so you fly, or you start up, you lock in your home, you fly, you do an RTH, you come back, lands, power off, and you take out the batteries and you swap the battery for a fresh one, right? As soon as you power off, right, even if you don't take the battery out, but as soon as you power off, that home thing goes away. right? That home position goes away. So it's like you have to reset it every time. Now it's a very simple thing. It's kind of the what has to take place anyways before you can even take off. But I'm just saying, like, don't always assume that the home position is going to be in the exact same position every single time. You can take the drone and physically place it on the same place every time. But yeah, just saying. Okay, so RTH, it's considered what I call it a fail safe, right? A fail safe. Fail safe is like, you know, something's not right, or something bad potentially is going to happen, and I need a safety net. I need something to reset, so that these bad incidents doesn't continue or potentially happen. Okay, so that's what an RTH really is meant to be, a failsafe. Okay, and there's a number of scenarios where this comes in handy, right? So your battery level gets low, and it becomes unsafe to continue your drone flight. Okay, your RTH will, by default, your RTH will kick in. Okay, this is not just the DJIs, but really any of the drones. With the DJI in particular, when the battery gets to 30% level, that's when the RTH, at least depending on how far away you are from the drone, because that's the other thing. It knows how far away you are, and based on that distance away, it can calculate how much battery voltage it takes to get home. If you're really close, the failsafe will first just give you a little warning at that 30% mark. Then at the 25% mark, it'll give you an even stronger warning. And then if you are at 20%, no matter what, it's going to RTH. Okay. Now, if you're really far away and you hit that 30%, it's going to RTH regardless. Okay. So battery is probably the most frequent thing. Also, like a loss in the RC link between the drone and the controller. Okay. And I don't know the exact number of seconds it takes, but yeah, I think it's around 10 to 20 seconds that RTH will come back. Okay, that RTH will I'm sorry, the RTH will take over. There is a way to disable the RTH when it is coming back home. There's a toggle on the top where you can just say, okay, go back to manual flight, and that's fine. But you'll get tons of beeping and warnings and saying, hey, be careful, your battery's low or you're out of frequency or whatever it is, right? And so if you have some type of unexpected interference with the RC, again, it's kind of similar to what we just talked about with the link. That's another thing that could trigger this RTH. And just, overall, as a pilot, there are times, frequently, where you might go, whoa, I'm scared. Something just happened. Birds, gust of wind, whatever it is. Something just happened where I don't feel comfortable right now, right? And so, the drone is going to be difficult to fly back by hand, or maybe it's in the middle of some type of other flight operation. Look, just to get this thing back to a safe place, I'm going to use the easy button here called the RTH, and I'm going to abort this mission. Okay. And so you just push that big button that I have a picture of, and I think you hold it for about 3 seconds, and the drone will go, okay, beep, 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 and it'll stop, and it'll just instantly, it won't come straight back, but what it will do is, if you read like how Kennedy said, it will actually ascend to a default altitude, which with DJI is 90 meters. So that's also something you have to be aware of, because you might need to change that. But it will ascend to what it considers a safe altitude first, and then comes straight back to the home position where horizontally it will position itself in that horizontal directly upright, and then descend slowly. Okay, that's what happens with RTH. Okay, I might ask you for examples about RTH, just so you know. Let's talk about privacy, right? Let's talk about privacy. Look, think about it, right? Think about the public and the stigma that's around drones. Here's the thing. I like what Kennedy said because it's very similar to my own experience, and that is that the majority of people that he runs into in the public are enthusiastic. They're excited. They're just downright curious, and they're like in a good way. Like, hey, what the heck is that? A drone? Is that thing flying? Does that thing have a camera? Oh my gosh, that looks like a ton of fun. I wish I had that kind of thing, right? I would say 9 out of 10 times when somebody comes up to me and like, I don't, unexpectedly, they want to talk to me like that, right? Um, so that's a good thing. It really is. It's really a good thing. But there is that, 10% where they're going to go, hey man, get that eye in the sky away from me. Don't use that for unlawful spying, or that thing's a killing machine, right? And so I'm kind of chuckling at this in a way, but at the same time, people do have a reasonable right to privacy. Let's just be frank, right? You know, you don't know what that thing is that's flying over your head and it's got a camera and it's taking a picture of you. That's kind of creepy. It's kind of creepy, right? Now, here's the thing. Number one, if you try to shoot down a drone with a gun, that's a federal offense because the FAA considers that you are shooting down an aircraft, shooting at an aircraft. And so whether that's a Boeing 737 or a DJI Phantom, FAA considers them all the same thing, and it is the same offense no matter what. So just so you know that, don't do that. But I kind of have, I guess you could say mixed feelings about this at the same time too, right? Because I mean, in public, right? Private eye could take a picture of a person who's on a public street or in a public place without that person's consent, and it's completely and totally legal. So if the same is true, but now they're just taking the picture with a drone, how is that any different, right? If they're not flying directly over them. I don't know, frankly. Again, this is another blurred line of where privacy, it's hard to specifically nail that down. It just is. Again, though, just as best practices, don't annoy people with your drone that don't know who you are. Like I said at the beginning of this, you shouldn't be flying even 150 feet next to them anyways. But yeah, don't antagonize people. You shouldn't be spying on people. Just kind of keep these words and use them to your best. To your best in the sense of respect a person's right to privacy. Another story, if I'm on a job and I'm flying over a property and I've been given all the clearance to fly over this private property from a contractor I'm working with. And say somebody comes up to me who's not part of the job or not part of the property and starts giving me a hard time. What am I going to do about that, right? My best course of action, first and foremost, I would say, look, you need to step away because this is a dangerous thing that I'm controlling, and for everybody's safety, please don't talk to me until I have this drone landed. Now, if I can, I would do everything I can to RTH, right? Get the drone down to try and diffuse the situation. With that being said, once the drone is landed and everything is safe, I will do everything in my power to try and reason with somebody, right? Reason with somebody. Now, if they're being belligerent or violent or something else, obviously I'm not going to stay there. But if it's just a person that is asking questions because they're concerned about their privacy, hey, I mean, I don't have to. I really don't. But it would be in the best interest to, I guess, mitigate conflict to say, look, I'm Jeff from DVC and I'm doing a research project for the college, or I'm working with these students to demonstrate piloting, or I'm working on a job and I'm doing a environmental survey or whatever it is. Here's my credentials, here's my card, call me for an aerial photo, right? I don't know, something like that, right? Try to be nice, try to be polite, again, because that's the thing, right? You want to, in this instance about public stigma being negative, we really have a duty to, I say, let's call it, try to flip the switch on that, right? And maybe turn some of those people to actually demonstrate, hey, this is a good thing we're doing, right? Because really what I want you guys to take away from this course is, how can I use drones for good? How can I use drones for good? And a lot of time it's just education, this education. And that helps kind of people turn, change their mind about what was a potentially negative situation. So, okay, let's keep going. Yeah, I pulled this directly from Kennedy here. Best practices are important when it comes to risk management. A lot of this sounds like common sense, but just having these kind of simple checklists written down helps a lot, right? Because you can tell yourself a million times, oh, I know this and this and this. There's so many things that happen in the moment, right? When you're out there in the field. So, something like a collision with the public, or establish an exclusive zone around the takeoff and landing point, right? 100 feet. Don't come within 100 feet of that drone, and be very specific about that. Hopefully it's, maybe you have another team with you. Hopefully you have a visual observer with you. That's another thing I haven't even really mentioned yet, but this term called visual observer, that's like your partner when you're flying. You really need to be flying as a team with two people. One person is flying the drone and observing the controls and the screen in real time. The other person is eye contact on the drone out in the sky 100% of the time. And these two people talk to each other, pilot in command, visual observer, right? They talk to each other all the time, okay? All the time. Let's see. So, I mean, again, I'm not going to read all of these things specifically. But, last thing I'll point here is that having something like this in writing will help if there is some type of incident. It will help you and your cause in your justification that you were trying to do everything the right way. Okay. And an accident occurred. But here are all the ways that you tried to prevent that from happening. Okay. Yeah, checklist. Here's the last part. Okay, and we're gonna practice this in the field. Your checklist, and I made this actually, kind of quickly as I was just kind of sitting here putting this lecture together. But I realized within a few minutes that I've gone over 20 plus things. And when I get out there in the field, there's probably going to be 20 more things I'm actually going to add that I haven't even thought of right now, right? But a good checklist is extremely important because there's a number of things you have to make sure you have, right? So like when you're staging, just to go over the equipment, what do you have and what do you not have? So really it's a checklist of making sure you have these things. Are all your batteries charged? Right? Do you have an iPad or an iPhone or whatever it is, right? Do you have, you may need some kind of special holder for the iPad or a hood cover or something like that, right? Do you have that? You have the cable, that connects the tablet to the controller? Do you have an SD card, right? Believe it or not, without one of these, let me show you here. Without one of these little tiny micro, which is that about the size of my pinky nail here, I guess about maybe the size of my thumbnail here. Without one of these, okay, you cannot save any pictures or videos at all. So yeah, this is an extremely important piece of equipment that more often than not um, uh, is not present. Um, and this is me speaking from firsthand experience and speaking from experience with groups and teams that I've been with, and they go, shoot, I've got everything but my SD card. And so it's just like total bummer when it comes to what you can do. So anyways, yeah, you gotta have an SD card. You gotta make sure the props are secure. And there's my SD card in my computer. So, I mean, I'm not gonna bore you with all of these one at a time. I'll let you kind of read through these. I'm sure you already are doing something like that. And frankly, you'll make your own checklist as you do this. But we're gonna practice. Yeah, we're gonna practice and kind of get yourself used to it as a team, going over what a checklist is like. Okay. Um, and that is the last one for me. So let's see. Turn this off. Oops. Stop share. Okay. Okay, so that's all that I have on the safety lecture for you. I hope you enjoy. Yeah, I mean, we're getting into moving beyond the rules and how to be safe, that kind of thing. And as we continue with the course, we'll get into some real fun stuff where we talk about photography and how to fly well, how to fly like a pro. That's one of the titles, right? So we're getting there. We're crossing the hump here, getting over, and we're gonna get to some real fun stuff here coming up soon. Okay. Thanks for everybody for watching, and see you next time. Bye for now.